Record video. Take picture. Stop recording video. Button.
Hello, everybody. It's been a little while. I wanted to just get back with you guys and tell you where we were on things.
Speech off.
I'm going to turn speech off so it doesn't interrupt me here. As you can tell, probably by the screen reader, if you guys pay attention to that kind of stuff, I'm back on iOS. It was a 3.5 month experience I had with Android that I enjoyed parts of it, but I ended up ultimately coming back. So I want to do a video because I was raving about how great Samsung was, and I still think it's great. I will preference this by saying I do think they are, they're not moving as fast as I would like. I think from Android 8 Oreo to Android 9 Pie for Samsung, there was no changes. So that's a little frustrating. The Galaxy Watch also is sort of stuck in this point where it's not updating and hasn't changed. And, you know, I feel like their platforms are a little immature as far as accessibility goes, and they need to still be updating. And I really do feel like Samsung's just using an old API of TalkBack, and, you know, it'll slowly change as TalkBack improves and when Google releases that out to them. Yes, they did go ahead and put in gestures like the double tap to play pause for voice assistant, for example, or some 3-finger gestures. But like I say, if you're not going to update your screen reader and make it work on the web, for example, with granularity, what's the point? The other thing is Samsung's so slow about getting updates out. I mean, Android's moving on to Q, people just got Pie. If that doesn't matter to you, that's great. And you know, like I said, I don't think there was a big enough change to really care for Pie. But what if there was something that was in Q that we would all need or want for accessibility reasons? For that alone, I would say if you're going to go Android, get a Pixel, get something that's in the Android One program. You know, stay away from Samsung. I did like the Note 9. I thought it was a great phone. I think for a phone purpose, it was the best thing I've ever had from a phone standpoint. It rivaled my old Windows phone experiences back in the day. I've just never been a fan of the iPhone phone. I don't like the fact that it goes to speakerphone randomly. I turn that off because it nearly blows out my eardrum when the proximity sensor decides not to work as a voiceover user. So, but I don't like the way it works as a phone for whatever reason. It just seems inadequate. You know, with Android, you can tap the power button to end the call. You can hit the volume up key to answer the call. There are just some things that are built into the OS that are cool. The reason there are 3 reasons I think ultimately I came back to iOS. One, I'm going to go minor to major. One is Braille screen input. So with the iPhone or iPad or whatever, I can quickly type out a message in, you know, I can turn my screen and make it a Braille keyboard and type in what I want to say. And I love that feature. I mean, you know, I'm actually decently quick by using the keys, but I am super fast with using Braille. I've used Braille my whole life. So I love having that option. I don't have a Braille display that I carry with me all the time. I have a Orbit reader I carry from time to time, but it's not always on me. So I love that Apple gives me that option. Speaking of that, I don't like on Android that you have to, whenever you use a Braille display, Braille back is just wonky. It's so immature. So if you're a Braille reader at all, stay on iOS. I mean, you can do basic things with Braille, but it's just not good at this point. And LS Bard, for example, they don't have the things they have on iOS where you can read the Braille books built in. So you know, and it's just really because of Braille back shortcomings. And it's kind of sad because Braille back has some pretty cool features. So, for example, if you're on the home screen and you can have, maybe you have 3 things showing on your Braille display, you have a Braille display 40 or something like that, a Focus 40 or a 40 cell display, you can hit the cursor routing button and launch the app that's above, or, you know, that coincides with that button. You know, so say you had YouTube TV, and Calendar. if I hit the cursor routing button above calendar, it would launch calendar, which is awesome. I think it's the only one of its kind to do that, like the only operating system to let you do that. I think Windows might, but I don't know. I don't think it does. Anyway, I just thought that was pretty cool innovation, but yet they besides that, it's just so lacking. So anyway, so that's reason one. Reason two is for sure, I just don't like the inconsistency of flicking. I don't mind touching to explore. I know the layout of my screen pretty well. I know where things are. I don't mind just touching and going, but there are just times I like to flick. And flicking on Android is super inconsistent. It doesn't do the result that I think it should do. The third thing, I'm going to put 4 because I just thought of another one, is apps are not as mature on Android as they are on iOS. And I'm going to give you a few examples. The Athletic is a sports commentary that I read all the time. On iOS, they have a speak article button that is not in the Android option. So basically, you have to go to global context and you have to go to read all. There's not a quick speak all button. And I don't even always use it on iOS, but the fact it's not there is kind of interesting. The other ones that I know that used to bother me, I use Day One to journal, and there is no audio support for Day One on Android. And I emailed the devs about it, and they said, it'll be there sometime. It didn't come in 3 months, so I don't have high hopes that it's ever going to get there. I love that feature because I can just, if I go to a party or I go to something I want to capture audio-wise, I can just turn on my mic, click on new audio, and it's recording instantly, and I have that memory saved. Android, I just don't have that option without switching journal apps, and I just didn't. I found a few other ones, but they all had unlabeled buttons, or they had a shortcoming here or there, or they didn't even have audio, so I never found a great solution over there. But there, on the flip side of that, there were some apps that worked better at the time than iOS. Some of the apps have updated on iOS and they were fun. Like DoorDash is one I particularly remember. On iOS, it used to be a really frustrating experience to order food. On Android, it was perfect, and then now they've recently switched and it works fine on iOS as well now. But my first and major reason for going back was Mail. I never found a great mail client on Android. I tried them all. I tried Aquamail, I tried Outlook, I tried Gmail. I didn't want to try any more. I felt like 3 was as enough. One thing that annoyed me, it annoys me on iOS when you get it and they have all this Apple crap on there, like, that I don't use, clips and video on the iPad, Ring a Bell, for example, or iMovie. But on Android, it's the same thing, but it's worse because it's like apps that, like Samsung installs its mail app, and then Gmail installs its mail app, and then you can remove them, but I mean, I don't know. It's just so much stuff you have to get rid of on the go that you really can't customize. Like, why do I need 2 email apps when you ship out the OS to me? And I did try Samsung's mail app, and I couldn't compose a message in there, and I reported that. It's kind of sad. They make the screen reader, and they don't make an app, their own mail app. You can't actually compose an email, which is really bad. But I did like their email app the best outside of that. If they just fixed the being able to write an email and actually edit what you write. Now, I could actually write the email. I just couldn't edit it. That's what it was. And I mean, that's a big problem. I mean, if I misspeak or mistype, going back and fixing that, you cannot do that. So I don't know. There were a lot of shortcomings to the Android operating system that I do think in time will get worked out. I enjoyed my little time with it, but as a power user, I just couldn't justify staying over there. And the Galaxy Watch was frustrating. Bixby on the Galaxy Watch, dictating actually works better on Siri on the watch. I don't like Siri on the iPhone so much with dictation or just dictation on the iPhone as much. It seems to err a lot on the watch, on the Galaxy Watch. Bixby was terrible. Oh my gosh. I really thought living with the Google Assistant on Android would be a much better experience. But what I found was the more I use it, the more I found that it had shortcomings as well. I mean, looking on the outside, you're like, man, the Google Assistant's smart. It seems to know everything and it can do everything. It mistypes stuff and it misdictates just like Siri does. You know, they all have their ups and downs. And I think with Siri, with shortcuts, Apple has actually addressed, I think it can become more powerful the more apps use it. Like, for example, right now with an app called File Browser on my iPhone, I can say the name of a folder in my File Browser app. For example, Boston Blackie, I listen to it at night when I go to sleep. And all I have to do is hold down the Siri button, say Boston Blackie. It launches File Browser, goes into the iPhone folder where I have it, and actually opens the folder Boston Blackie and puts my focus right at the top, which is amazing. There's nothing like that on Android with the Google Assistant. I can't do that kind of. I just don't have that kind of capability. So I don't know. I think if you're the kind of person, I think Android can work for you. This is not a bash Android only kind of post here. But I think if you're a person that kind of relies on their computer and relies on using your phone as a secondary device, I think Android's perfect. You can stream from it. You can do anything you need to do for the most part on there with minor agitation. If you're a heavy user of your phone, I would say iPhone at this point. And, I've been listening to Double Tap Canada. It's a podcast that airs Thursdays. And one thing that kind of frustrated me about their review of the Galaxy phone was they reviewed it and they go, oh, can't do this, or voice assistant's kind of infant and talkback has some issues, and then the visual thing lacks here, but then they go, well, the phone's a 10, and I'm like, but you just pointed out like 8 errors, and it's interesting, they were talking about they were talking about how you can't do the double tap on the Galaxy, but you can with Voice Assistant. Your Voice Assistant is very immature. It doesn't have a lot of features, but what I do like is that you have some choices and they are a little different. So I can double tap on the screen and audio will play and pause if I have Voice Assistant turned on. And it's a really with Samsung, what's cool is if you learn how to use the two screeners in conjunction with each other, you can be pretty powerful with it and have most of what iOS has, but then you get to the immaturity of apps or the Braille screen input that kind of frustrated me. So I don't know. I came back to iOS, and really ultimately, this is one argument I hear from the community a lot, the blind community that is that Apple is so expensive. And I feel the same way, and that's why ultimately I was kind of hoping and pushing for the Android side. But if you're buying a Pixel or you're buying a Galaxy, there's no room for you to talk about how much Apple phones are because they're the same price. I mean, the Apple iPhone XR is, the 128 is $799, right? Or $799, yeah. And I think the 64 is $750. It's the same price as the S10e. The Galaxy Note 9, the phone I had, they had a 512 gigabyte phone, and it was like $1,300 or $1,400, same price as the iPhone. You're paying the same price. Now, are there better deals after a few months on the Samsung devices? Sure. But you're not. I mean, this whole argument that you're actually saving money going to Android is a little silly because ultimately you're paying the same amount for these phones. I mean, and to me, even if I'm paying $50 more, let's just say, I mean, accessibility wise, I feel like I'm much better on Apple at this point. Now, I think that's changing. Like I said, I think depending on how you use Android, it would be fine. I have a friend at work who uses Android every day for his device, but he will fully admit to you that, we use our phones differently. He uses his phone to text, to take calls, and to occasionally do an app. But he doesn't, he goes to his computer as his main device. I do not. I strictly, I have a Surface, and I enjoy Windows for what it is. but I would much rather use the thing that's in my lap. One final thing about Samsung that just frustrates me, and this is a Samsung thing, because I can do it on the Pixel, and maybe if I tried the Pixel, I would like Android a little bit better. But Samsung, because I'm blind, dictates how I use the phone. So for example, they will not let you use apps in split screen. So like on my iPad, what I like to do is I like to pull up YouTube TV or TuneIn Radio, and then have the sports scores and alerts app on the other side. So I can actually listen to a game or watch a game and then hear results of another game coming in, like what's going on, play by play. And it's awesome. And I was like, man, the Note 9, it's powerful enough to do it. And I would love to have that capability. So I was really excited. So I get in and get going, start to do it. It doesn't work. And I'm like, why isn't it working? Why is the app just quitting when I try to pull in the other app on the side? Well, lo and behold, because I'm using accessibility, they will not let you run two apps side by side in split screen mode. They disable it. So you can't even do it. Now, if you turn off Voice Assistant and you can operate your phone normally with Vision, you can have at it and have two apps going at once. It's ridiculous. And it goes back to that same issue with the Galaxy Watch. If I run Spotify or a third-party app that they have, which are not many on the Tyson platform, but if I find one that I wanted, like Spotify, and I go to launch it, it says you're using Voice Assistant. This app will not work with a screen reader. Press OK. And once you press OK, you're in the app, but you can't do anything because, of course, I'm totally blind and I can't see what's on the screen. So I need that feedback. And it's super frustrating when Samsung does that. At least, at least let the app try. Like if all I heard was button, maybe I can contact Spotify, maybe I can contact the dev and say, hey, this isn't working with Voice Assistant. Can you guys update this? Can you fix it somehow? But Samsung's not even letting it try. It's I don't know. It's maddening to me. So those are the things I found frustrating about Android. I hope this helps. I went back and I've traded my Note 9 for an XR. I love the XR. I think it's the best iPhone I've ever had. I don't know. I'm very pleased with it. It's got great battery life. The Note 9 had great battery life with the 5,000 mAh battery, but Samsung's standby time is terrible. With the iPhone, I feel like, as I use it, the battery kind of deflates, somewhat quickly, which makes sense to me because you're using it and you're pushing it. I felt like Samsung's phones, the more I used it, the better it was. Like, I actually felt like I could stream TuneIn Radio for 8 hours and not make a huge dent in my battery on the Galaxy. But if I let the damn thing sit in my bag, so if say I went to work and I didn't use it for 4 or 5 hours, it would drop 20%, which is crazy. And I had great cell set reception. I was on Wi-Fi. There's no reason that the battery should be dropping that quickly in standby. When searching Samsung Threads, that seems to be a common thing. Samsung batteries stink on standby is what a lot of people say. So I hope they fix that in the future. And I also hope they keep making advances in accessibility. They are just not moving fast enough. I didn't see any changes from Android 8 to Android 9 on the Galaxy phones. Plus, you're 8 months behind the Pixel. And that's also maddening. So I think if I were going to ever do it again, I would only go Pixel, or I would only go on the Android One program. And I'd have to even research that to know if I fully would go with that. But I would definitely go with the Pixel line because you're going to get updates as they roll out. And you're also going to get those first to Google features. I don't know of anything that you're gaining on the Samsung front that would make you go, oh, you know what, I'm going to go over here, unless you just really wanted the two screen readers and have that double tap to pause and play like I was talking about, because I do like that. So I'm going to wrap this up. Bye for now, and I'll talk to you all later.
Speech on. Stop recording. Take picture. Stop recording video.